Welcome to Michael Potts F1, every moment from every Grand Prix.
Michael, we have so much to talk about, and it was probably an exhausting doubleheader for you. What did you think about these past two races?
They are two very, very big Grand Prix. And what's sort of happening towards the end of the season is that each race seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But Austin was a massive weekend, sprint weekend, loads and loads of fans. There's an awful lot going on. And we're in the sort of point of the championship where every moment becomes absolutely critical, and each race provides completely new twists to the stories. It's super exciting, and yeah, really, really enjoyable. Now, you went to Austin. How did you find that?
Well, it was an incredible, not even a weekend, because I was there for like almost a week, and there was so much festivities around the race, kind of leading up to it, and the buzz in the city, like the whole city rallies around the race, and it was hot. Oh my gosh. Like it felt like it was like 30, 40 degrees every day. I have a crazy new appreciation for all the people in F1 who work full time, like yourself, the photographers, the comms people, obviously all of the teams. And yeah, it was an amazing experience and some action for us to talk about too on track.
The sprint race with the first corner incident, that was quite wild. It looked like, I mean, the FIA gave it a sort of a racing incident, and it probably was, but I think Oscar was the one driver that could have done more to avoid it.
Yeah, and I mean, we're really in the championship fight because I think that particular incident everyone really talked up because every point matters. Now, after Mexico, Lando's only ahead of Oscar by 1 point. And I thought that in Austin, I think George talked about after that race how a lot of racing this year has become very processional with the way that the cars are. It's really hard to follow with the aero design and all of the dirty air. And then combined with the Pirelli tires just being really good and just not degrading enough to give any driver a big offset, tire offset to then pass someone. We did see a lot of processional driving I found in Austin. I don't know if that's a characteristic of like those factors plus the track.
Yeah, exactly, because the track actually is quite a good one for overtaking. It's produced some very exciting racing in the past, and this was a bit processional. The way Lando passed Charles the second time, he backed off, he preserved his tires, and then he was able to launch an attack and overtake him. I thought was quite a significant moment, not only for the championship, but also for Lando's progression as a driver. In the past, he would be overly keen to make a move and he'd probably go a little bit too soon. And there'll be incidents with him and Max specifically where they'd drive each other off the track, or even earlier this year with Oscar, where he had a faster car and he was too keen to make a pass rather than waiting for the right time. This time it seemed a lot more calculated, a lot more measured, and I think it's a shift in how he's driving. He's becoming a much better driver. So I thought that was hugely significant. And then he carried it on into Mexico, where he was just uber dominant.
One thing that Lando talked about that I thought was really interesting was he doesn't have lap deltas on his wheel anymore. And he hasn't had the lap delta on his wheel since Monaco. And he believes that for him, by having like less data, it helps him just focus on the driving and the feel and be more present in the car. And that's how he felt when he did that amazing lap in Mexico for quali. He had no idea how he did it, but he just did it because he was just focused on the driving. So I can kind of see how that potentially relates back to passing Charles and having that patience and just like feeling it out versus having too much information to process.
Orlando very much wears his heart on his sleeve, and having anything that could cause additional anxiety would add pressure to him in the car. So probably not having that data really helps because each car is different. And each driver is different. So their style, someone might be stronger at a certain part of the track. And if you're looking at that and trying to be better than them everywhere, it is going to cause you pressure. Just focusing on you and focusing on the bits that you do well probably means that you can string it all together better.
I wonder if the environment at Austin gives these drivers a boost. Like there was an incredible amount of people there. And, the number of cowboy hats, cowboy boots, the Western, like everyone really leans into it. The teams, the drivers, the fans. It's like a really fun festival type of experience. Personally, for me, like have a newfound love for this brand called Tecovas. It's like a Western wear brand. They make cowboy boots. I had a lot of reservations going into this weekend. Like, how am I going to survive walking in cowboy boots all weekend? I probably walked 50 kilometers in cowboy boots this weekend, and they're not the first shoe that comes to mind that has great, that's good for you to be doing that. But they were incredible. They were more comfortable than like wearing sneakers. So big thanks to them. And I just loved how everyone leans into that whole like denim vibe too.
It's really got its own identity out of all of the races, and it feels like it's one of the biggest, one of the most important for Formula One. I'd say it's Formula One's way of connecting to the real racing fans in the USA.
Mhm.
The other two races have their own identity and their own characteristics, but Austin is a real racing fans race. Yeah, it's hugely important for the sport, and I think it's one of the biggest weekends for most of the teams. You saw how many
Yeah.
custom liveries there were. Everyone was putting something new on their car, or drivers were changing their helmets. It's important for everyone.
Like it's been around for a decade, is that right? Over a decade,
Yeah,
the coda itself?
yeah, I think 12 years.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, the whole setup is insane. Like all the fan zone areas, they're building a theme park. I went on a roller coaster at an F1
Yeah,
race. I haven't been on a roller coaster since I was probably 12 years old.
I think it's going to be on the calendar for a number of years. They just re-signed for a chunk more time, and it's a great place to go. And if you're in North America and you haven't been to it, it's definitely one of the races you should do. There's lots of general admission areas. You can get tickets that are relatively affordable. They also have very, very good VIP and different kind of race package options. So yeah, so there's something for everyone, and it's a very, very cool race. Yeah.
And you can't forget that Texas hospitality, everyone
Yes.
is extremely friendly for a race that is so big, so hectic, so busy, and for all the teams and yourself to pack up and go to Mexico in like 24, 48 hours later, and then have another intense race in Mexico, which was very, very exciting. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, it's quite a turnaround between those two. Just little things like the altitude difference. Both of them are very, very hot, but they're hot in different ways. Mexico just feels, the sun feels very, very heavy, even though the temperatures aren't as high as Austin. The altitude, you're very, very aware of it walking up the stairs to Forest. It feels like you've climbed Mount Everest. Yeah, there's a big, big difference. And you can see it in the cars as well, how the team set up the cars. Mexico has recorded the fastest speed ever of a Formula One car. And it's a similar sort of layout to Monza, where it's got essentially three corners. But instead of having those Monza skinny wings, they have these sort of Monaco style massive wings to help increase the downforce because the air is so thin that they need to find some resistance somewhere, but it does create some amazing, amazing racing. I was standing on the halfway down the start finish straight and hearing the cars and feeling the cars go past. It's a different feeling to most other tracks. They do definitely get into a higher speed zone there than anywhere else.
Well, I guess if the air's thinner, the car's punching through the air so much faster. And we talked about processional racing in Austin, but in Mexico, the factors of the higher altitude, lower air, I heard a smoother track surface and very dusty. Those things
Very dusty.
combine all just make for less grip and very exciting racing. And the longest turn or longest run down to turn one, which I mean, I think they did that race start replay probably 15 times because there was so much going on.
It was very dusty. I was in the pits on the first session. A car went past me quite nearby, and I was just in a cloud of dust in my face, and cleaned the camera lens and everything. I got a really cool shot of Bortoleto going wide at the final corner, and the columns of dust coming out the back of the car. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, it was so exciting to watch. Obviously, Lando had an extremely dominant weekend. That quali lap was incredible. He said that he didn't know where all the time came from, but that switch that he made about not having the lap deltas on his steering wheel allows him to just focus on the driving, feel the car, and be present in the moment. And so he pulled out that incredible lap. And then to be 30 seconds ahead of Charles, that is a win-win.
yeah. So at the end of Austin, everyone was talking about Max, how Max is unstoppable. He's got momentum. Next race, Lando seems to be the one with the momentum and being unstoppable. But it's just spare a thought for Oscar. Oscar's had a bit of a rough time since Zandvoort. In Zandvoort, he had this massive lead, and now he's 1 point behind Lando. And probably, possibly, this is the best thing for him because he's now not playing defensive. He's now has to attack. He has to be aggressive. If he's going to win the championship, he has to beat Lando. And it's a much I think it's a much easier mindset for him to get into than how he was being defensive. I don't think it comes naturally to him. So I think we're going to see a transformed Oscar in Brazil. Max always goes well in Brazil. I'm very, very
I
excited for the
agree.
next race.
Yes, definitely. And last year's Brazil, I remember, was super, it was the craziest race ever with the
Yeah.
rain and the multiple restarts. But yeah, Oscar was, this was the first race in Mexico that I saw him come across as like a bit unsure and
Yes.
confused. He talked about how the car hasn't changed because they're moved on development to the 2026 car. He hasn't changed his driving style. And those two things combined, he hasn't been able to find the pace as compared to Lando. So he talked about how he has to do a little soul searching going into Brazil because something has to change because what he's doing right now is not working. And I think we are in for a very, very exciting battle. And you know, Max, I have to talk about Max for a second. He is looking so relaxed, happy. I think he's enjoying being the underdog. And
Yeah.
all of the questions and focus are on Oscar and Lando. And you know, the media is kind of like pitting them against each other and always talking about the points difference. And Max is just there, sitting back, relaxing. He wasn't even that upset that the safety car came out and he didn't get Charles for P2. He's like, oh, you know, it's racing. And so he's like, I think, really enjoying where it's at right now. And you can never count him out. You know, he could still come back and win it all.
I mean, it's highly unlikely that he's going to win the championship. I mean, closing a 40-point gap in four races is unrealistically difficult. The fact that he closed 60 odd points in four races just shows what an amazing driver is. He kind of, in a way, he doesn't have that pressure on him, but in a way, he could still do it. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's sort of freedom to be able to express yourself because if it doesn't work, you can go, well, realistically, I didn't really have a chance. But at the same time, he really is driving so, so well. And things have changed dramatically at Red Bull since Christian left. It's like a completely different team. Had they been driving like this at the start of the year, they probably would have been leading both championships by a very long way. It's going to be interesting going into next year because they have actually focused on development. They brought some new parts to these races, and all of that development time does take away from your next year's budget and your next year's time. Their argument is that if they can fix the problems and get a better understanding of why they're doing better, they will know their tools better going into next year. So we'll see if that works.
Well,
Yeah.
another team that we've been talking about, Michael, that needed a more uplifting and positive weekend is Ferrari. And we saw a lot of encouraging signs in Mexico, obviously with Charles in P2, but both of them qualifying P2 and P3. Lewis was like giddy in the press conference. He was so happy to be there in the post-quality press conference. He hadn't been there in a while. What was your take on Ferrari's performance?
I suspect we're going to see a good showing from Ferrari in the final few races. Lewis always goes well in Brazil. It was really, really good to see. I think Lewis's race went away from him a bit. I think he would have been there and thereabouts on the podium if he had a cleaner race. But yeah, good to see Ferrari being there on merit. And I think we'll see them being strong in a couple of the races towards the end of the year. But it's also, Mercedes weren't that far off either. And we're getting quite a good battle between the teams for second place in the championship. You've got to expect that Mercedes will be strong in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's going to get all the way through the championship. There's some great battles between teams and drivers. Ollie Behrman scoring all of those points has really catapulted him into the mix. It's lifted Haas up the championship standings. Everything is changing so quickly.
I have not been tracking the weather in Brazil, but I wonder
It's
if it
probably going
will.
to rain. And when it rains, it's like nothing else. You can see it coming over the track. So you have maybe a 5-minute warning. And then it's like all of the water just descends on top of you at the same time. It's something else. It's wild. Last year it was so wet. And it rained massively the year before as well. So, it's this time of year, it's always very dramatic. So, yeah.
Can't wait.
There's a little bit of news on the driver market. We were expecting a decision to be made on Yuki Tsunoda by the end of the Mexican Grand Prix. It looks like that's going to be extended until the end of the year. Red Bull have promised to make an announcement before the final race. It's an interesting one because we had Arvid Lindblad, the Red Bull Junior F2 driver, driving in the first session. And he did really well. He was a bit faster than Yuki in a Red Bull, and he had a really strong performance, a really strong showing. And he seemed to get on with the team very, very well. So there's a strong rumor that he's going to get into Racing Bulls. So the choice that they've got to make now is it Yuki or Hadjar to partner Max? And is it Yuki and Lawson to partner Lindblad. So they could also leave Lindblad in F2 for another season and keep the driver lineup as it is. So yeah, lots of decisions to be made at Red Bull, and a bit of bombshell news for all Franco Colapinto fans out there. It looks like he is going to be announced at Brazil as the Alpine driver,
For
continuing
next year.
to be Pierre's teammate for next year.
Interesting. Well, Brazil would be the place to make that announcement, given
Yeah.
obviously we're going to be in South America.
And it's interesting because it's not just the drivers who are, trying to find a seat for next year. There's a lot of people in Formula One who have 1 year contracts. And, you kind of walk up and down the paddock and asking people what they're going to be doing next year. And so many people are going, well, I'm just waiting to see, or I'm just trying to move. We have this new team, Cadillac, coming, and they've been poaching lots of staff from different teams. So there's not only movement in the driver market, massive movement in the whole F1 personnel side of things. So yeah, silly season isn't just for drivers, it's for everyone. Thank you so much for watching this recap of these two races. I really hope you enjoyed it. There's links to photographs from both of them and links to all of Milkshake's content. So please do follow them. And until Brazil, goodbye.